NBA Free Agency Edition. I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Mr. Mike Hughes, representing the Windy City of Chicago. How are you doing, kind sir?
Man, we're doing good today, man. I appreciate you having me back on.
No doubt, no doubt. I know that we've been trying to play a little phone tag. We're trying to get up a good date, trying to get some of this NBA free agency going. But hey, we got to show love to the ladies, right?
No, 100%.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So we're going to be work. So again, we're proud to be working coordination with ASAP Sports Network. Want to give them a shout out and thank them for all their support. So today we're going to be discussing a lot of Phoenix Mercury, talking about some Las Vegas Aces because I just think that they are just going to roll over the league. We're going to be talking a little bit about Seattle, where they're going to go. The New York Liberty's chances, man. Las Vegas odds really have them as a favorite with some of those additions, and then also just some other things as far as any other open topics. But first, just kind of get right to this, man. Brittany Griner signing with the Phoenix Mercury. That's a very big one. Offensively, they have missed her production very clearly after watching some of the games myself up close in person. And then Diana Taurasi. Just want to get your thoughts, man. What do you think of some of these moves?
Yeah, I mean, I just spoke with Diana a couple weeks ago at Team USA, and she was really just trying to get a feel out for the new ownership and the new management that was coming in, and I think that definitely is why it took a little bit longer than people anticipated, and obviously, I don't think it was any secret that BG was waiting for Diana to sign because that immediately after Diana did, BG did, and that they just go hand in hand. They're amazing together. That's the Kobe and Shaq of the league. So. It was great to see them get that deal done. It makes them more competitive. It kind of makes it more interesting when you look at the playoffs because this was a
Yeah.
finals team that obviously turned into a top 5 pick with how bad they were without BG and obviously DT getting banged up throughout the year. Coaching decisions, a lot of things went wrong last year. Skylar Diggins Smith was a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely was something for me where I looked at it for what it was, and I was like, getting BG back, having DT healthy, it's going to be an interesting year, and I think they can definitely make some noise if everybody remains healthy and they kind of bounce back from last year. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, no doubt. And they were definitely a little bit better than the record. They finished fourth in the Western Conference, finished 15-21. But,
Mhm.
when you look at a woman like Brittany Griner in 2021, she averaged about 20 points, 9 rebounds, and as well as almost 2 blocks per game.
Yeah.
Right. That's a lot of offensive production that you're going to be missing in late game situations. And in a lot of the games, they would have leads going into the fourth quarter, but then just give up a lot of easy layups, getting up a lot of passing lanes. And I really think having Brittany Griner down in the middle, they are going to miss Tina Charles, even though she did go to
Mhm.
Seattle. I think that those two in the front court would have been something really special. But what do you really think that Diana Taurasi can bring at age 40 from an offensive perspective?
I mean, Diana still brings a lot. She's still a hooper. She's still there every single day. She still has amazing people surrounding her. She's still really active, discussing with Sue Bird. She talks to her every single day, and I feel like she has the right people around her to be able to have this confidence to still be out there and just hoop. I mean, I arguably think she's top 2 of all time in my personal opinion. I think you could kind of fluctuate 1 and 2 depending on how you look at it, but it's definitely something for me where I think Diana just needs to go out there and be herself. And I think, the conversation of her kind of stepping down in her role as one of the number 1 scorers, I think is crazy because I don't think she's missed a beat at all. I think definitely missing BG, it's a lot easier to, come at that team defensively and schematically. All you really got to focus on is DT because there's just a lot that went into last season with Diamond DeShields not playing to the expectations that she was and a bunch of other things. But for me, I think having BG back, I mean, this was a finals bound team. This team went to the finals, and obviously they don't have Sandy anymore. So the coaching decisions I do feel like need to get better. I will say that I think they're very questionable at times, and the locker room definitely needs to be managed well, especially with BG back because you don't know what headspace BG is in. Um, and we're hoping that she's doing well, but you never really know. And there were altercations between DT and Skylar at the All-Star break, and obviously the coaching staff. So if they can get that all under wraps, I think DT's role is to just be that leader and to just be that dog, and we know she has that in her. So I think it's going to be interesting to see who kind of steps up.
Oh, no doubt. I kind of see her as like working in kind of like a Bill Russell type S later in her career when she was when Bill Russell was a player coach, and not saying that she's going to necessarily be a coach, but her
Mm,
leadership and her cachet and the type of pedigree that she brings is going to be very, very, very pivotal because, as you're saying, I mean, late game execution has been a very, very big issue for them. They had maybe 5 or 6 very easy, winnable games, but they just could not execute offensively. And my thing is that outside of Brittany Griner, who are some of the other bigs that are going to be able to
mm.
alleviate some of the offensive pressure from her? Because if you know that they're not necessarily the biggest team in the
Right.
front court. So if you have her, they're going to clog the box. And so it's really going to be pivotal for them to have some perimeter shooting to add on top of that. Do you see any player from the Mercury who would be able to step into that role to be able to knock down some key shots in the event that they clog the hole with Brittany Griner?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really what training camp's all about. I haven't really checked out every single move they've made, and obviously they
Right.
have some draft capital to see, what they're going to do. And let's not pretend like the Mercury probably don't have a couple overseas people that they're interested in bringing in, because that's such a huge factor to it as well. People we won't really know until they bring them in. Is It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But I think they're going to lean heavy on BG. I don't
Mm.
see BG having issues early on in this season. I think she has enough time to really get back in shape and to really be the best version of herself. And I'm not saying she has to come out and
Right.
drop 20 points a game, but I definitely think BG's probably going to be ready to play ball. And I think, what's most telling about that is that how instantly BG signed after Diana did. It shows how much she wants to hoop and how much she wants the ball. So I really don't think they're even going to have to come to those problems, because I think BG is just going to go on a tear and just remind the league of who she was.
No doubt, no doubt, and kind of it's going to be the kind of the perfect transition, man. They play like the Las Vegas Aces so many times at the very beginning of the season, and this is a team now that is just absolutely loaded and adding arguably one of the most dominating power forwards of all time in Candace Parker, a woman who's averaging 16.2 points per game, 8 rebounds a game, 4 assists, just a well overall rounded team. But when I did a little bit of research, man, they have 4 players last season that averaged double figures.
Mm.
4 players, right? And then you look at Kelsey Plum, Asia Wilson, Chelsea Gray, and Jackie Young. I mean, that's a mean forward. Now that you add Candace Parker to that team, man, just high level, dude. Like, how dominant can this team be now adding another player like Candace Parker?
Yeah, I think you spoke to it. I mean, you got 4 players out of the 5 dropping 15 plus points. I mean, it's incredible. And I think that was really where I was with my Sky team last year. We were so hype about it because we had players who could average over 15 points a game. And when you can do that in this league, it changes everything, because, bench roles really, they're so important. But when you have all stars like that as your starting 5, I mean, it really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like it will matter at some point, but especially when you have Becky Hammond there,
Yeah.
the sky is the limit. So, it sucked to see Candace go. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I had a couple conversations with her before she left, and it's definitely something where we wish her all the best. But speaking with individuals again at Team USA, I spoke with Kelsey and I spoke with Jackie, and what I love about Kelsey is she didn't miss a beat. She felt like,
Yeah.
it's not that she didn't need Candace, but she was like, we're already the champs. So, we're just adding to it, trying to make a dynasty. And I love the confidence from KP. And Jackie is one of those sleepers, man. Jackie's one of those sleepers that could potentially be an MVP in the near future, man. I mean, she's so okay with not being the number 1 or the number 2. She's completely fine with her role. She's like a sponge, man. And
Yeah.
she really does learn from everybody. It's kind of like a Kalia Copper type role.
Yeah.
Like, Ka is now going to be the face of the Sky. And, at some point in time, I do believe Jackie Young will be the face of the Las Vegas Aces, next to obviously Asia Wilson and KP. But I think, if Jackie Young is your 4th or 5th best player, you're in a very good spot. So I think the Aces are, I mean, that's one of the Aces I think you could really look at in WNBA history, that you're like, yo, this team could potentially break every single record.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, they scored the most points per game at 90, and Chicago Sky was second, right? So now that you're missing a Candace Parker, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to pick up that offensive load, man.
Mhm.
17 points a game out of that 85 that they averaged last season, that's a large chunk of offense and very interesting. But the one thing that I'm really impressed about Las Vegas is that those 4 are good at doing individual things, right? Like Kelsey Plum with the scoring, leading the scoring last year, then Asia Wilson right? Averaging, 9.4 rebounds, almost 2 blocks a game. And then you got Chelsea Gray, who leads the team in assists and steals. But then you got Jackie Young, who just is kind of like that Draymond-esque type player that kind of does a little bit of everything. So, and again, all of them averaging double digits. And so now you're adding a woman like Candace Parker. Like, it's just going to be very tough to. I think they're going to average about 100 points a game. Do we think that that's pretty fair for adding a woman like Candace Parker?
I think it depends. I think it depends on the situations. I think, the thing about Candace is, I think there's going to be a lot of DMPs. And I say that because, Candace had a huge load, I guess I could say, to kind of just make it easier. But she had a huge load on her back last year, really just trying to be that number one scorer. I mean, averaging double doubles, getting triple doubles, doing whatever she could to pick up some slack where, sometimes the sky failed. But, it's something for me where Candace doesn't really need to play sometimes. You know what I mean? There's going to be nights where A'ja doesn't need to play, and there's going to be nights where, Chelsea Gray gets a rest. Like, you got to remember the age factor that goes into it. And I think that was the beauty of, Candace Parker coming here is that, there's already an established culture. There's already an established system. And I do believe that this team is going to reach heights that no other team really can. But, I think there's definitely going to be nights where guys get an off night. I mean, you got to give the girls an off night because it's one of those things where, what matters is the playoffs. I don't think Becky Hammon or anybody else truly cares about where they finish in the regular season because they know what they're capable of doing in the playoffs. So I think there's definitely going to be nights where they get rest. And I think, when you have a roster like this, that's no problem.
All right. And let me ask you another question. Who do you think is maybe one player or two that we haven't talked about for the Las Vegas Aces that will, because you got to have a bench, right? Who from the bench or in the second unit do you think is going to be able to provide an additional spark for them offensively?
Yeah, that's the interesting question right there. And I think, they made so many different moves. And obviously they have a couple of, issues going around in the league right now with how they handled certain things with a couple of their bench players. Hamby being one of them. And I think Hamby was so huge for them. And, whether the speculations are true about why they traded her and everything that went into that, there's a lot of different conversations going around right now. And until we get the facts on everything, I won't really go too deep into that. But I think with Hamby gone, I think there's definitely room for other people to step up. I can't really name anybody specifically, but, it's definitely going to be one of those interesting conversations to where, like we said, it could be someone brand new from overseas. It could be someone who's already been there. You really get a whole different feel of it now because Hamby was really one of your number one scorers off the bench last year.
Right. So, and then speaking of it, we could talk about Las Vegas for days. I just want to kind of do a pivot because you cover a lot of different teams. Just talk to me. You're a Chicago guy. Like, what are you hearing, or what are some things that you're interested in seeing, or what are some high level thoughts about your Chicago Sky? Because I know you're very passionate about them. We got to show them some love.
Yeah, we just finished media day. Well, it's not really media day, but it kind of was kind of an introduction for all the new players. We had Coach James Wade on there. I spoke with Elizabeth Harrison and obviously Courtney Williams and Elizabeth Williams. We got double Williams in the cut now. I feel like the OKC Thunder. We got 3 of them. But we spoke with Marina Mabrey, who we just traded 3 first-round picks for, which was crazy. Oh, wow. It's going to be interesting. It was like a whole 4-team deal. I think the Mercury were a part of it. They traded the Shields to Dallas, but yeah, I mean, it was something. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting nonetheless. I was talking to Ka about it at Team USA the most, though. Just understanding where she's at with it is that this is her team and she's excited for it. She's already won a finals MVP. She's put the league on notice. She's a Philly girl, man. And, the way they get down in Philly, she's tougher than anybody, man. She's second to nobody. So, I think this team's going to surprise a lot of people. I think they're going to be a lot more fast paced than they were last year. And I think that was one of the problems last year was, respectfully, because, I have great relationships with everybody, but, there's situations where, Allie Quigley, obviously Sloot, Emma, and everybody else, they play a certain style of basketball, and it's kind of a slower style. They really kind of want to get after it and get going, especially because, Ka's nickname in the Shy is the engine. She gets everything going, So you have Courtney Williams, you have Elizabeth Harrison, you have, all these other factors that go into it. Marina Mabrey, who I say, and I told her this, and I mean this with all due respect. Imagine Patrick Beverley if he was actually talented. That's really how I view her. Because man, she'll talk your ear off. She's super energetic. She's that she's a punk. You know, she'll punk you. You can't let her bully you because she'll also drop 20 on your head. So I mean, that's something for me. You know, we have some big dogs here, and we have some killers that I believe. You know, bringing back Rebecca Gardner was so huge. You know, she's such a defensive issue for so many different offenses, and I think she just understands this game so well. You know, we have a great team, and I think that's something. If you would have had me on here 2 weeks ago, I couldn't have told you. I really wouldn't
Right.
have understood like where we were at or what we were going to do. But after speaking with James this week, man, I feel confident in, you know, kind of doing exactly what we did when we won a championship when we went 16-16. Like, I understand these super teams that are going around, this narrative that there's a bunch of super teams, but don't forget the Sky broke damn near every record last year and lost to the Sun. So I mean, that's really what it comes down to for me is looking at it for what it is and thinking, you know, we're just going to go back to what we do, and you know, we're just going to play the best version of basketball that we can and just try to outcoach and outwork everybody else.
Hey, cheers to that. Cheers to that, man. Yeah, and I didn't realize that they were 16-16. That's my bad for not even researching that, man. But hey,
No,
like,
yeah, it's not talked about. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. You know, you always, once you win a championship, the record gets thrown out the window. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
we've seen so
right.
many wild card teams make it to the Super Bowl before, where it's like you forget all about them being in the wild card, not even winning the division. So
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's crazy. And we'll just do another pit before we get to kind of the Seattle Storm here and then losing Brianna Stewart because it just kind of gets my mind going. I saw that the clips of that little small trophy that they had at the WNBA All-Star game. Like, what did you think of that?
you said what?
That they had the trophy, that the MVP, like the
Oh,
award,
yeah, my bad. I thought you meant this past All Star game,
the
like just
no,
now.
the WNBA All-Star
Um,
game. Like, what did you think of that, man? I'm just curious.
yeah, I mean, like it was what it was. I was actually talking to KP about it a little bit when it happened, and you know, like whatever. You know what I mean? Someone fumbled the bag. Someone fumbled the bag for sure on that. Um, I believe I saw this meme going around, and I fact checked it because I wanted to see if it was legit. But you could have actually bought that yourself at Amazon for like $50. It wasn't.
Really?
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't anything crazy. I don't know if it was the exact replica, but yeah, it was upsetting for sure. You know, I definitely think, you know, it took away from such a great All-Star weekend, and because
Yeah.
that became the focus. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you're already trying to market this league. You're already trying to do the best version you can to get everybody interested. And then the only thing everybody can talk about is how shitty the trophy was. And I think
Yeah.
it kind of took away from, you know, how well KP played and how well other people played, Allie Quigley in the 3-point competition and so many others. Yeah, I definitely think that won't happen this year. I hope it doesn't
Yeah.
happen again this year, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you know, and like my thing is like we definitely have to bring on do more of these like WM free agency specials because you did your work for the for the Sky and I covered the Mercury quite extensively this year and really developed a passion even more for the women's game of basketball.
Yeah.
And say what you want, I'm like this league has got to stop getting disrespected. Like I just
Yeah.
feel like it's always like one thing after another, and unless you rigorously like followed the WNBA, you really wouldn't have known that there was an All-Star game. Like there really wasn't a lot of promoting about it. And that's just like really where it comes to. And so just kind of veering off this topic, like what are some things as just like a fellow like WNBA enthusiast would you like to see in order for the game to grow?
I mean, I think there's so many different ways you can attack this and so many different conversations we can have. But one I've always thought, like personally myself, is I want to see more people in the booth. You know, I want to see more people interacting with this league and really being a part of it. I love you know, that Richardson is a part of ESPN and doing his thing. You have Barkley, you have Shaq, you have so many others. I love having them in the NBA, and I love them doing their thing all the time because they make the commentary so much better. So if you could, you know, bring those kind of faces into the WNBA, and you could have, you
Yeah.
know, fan favorites, whether that be from the W or from the NBA as a whole, just basketball fan based heavy guys, you know, guys that, you know, whether you're into the W, whether you're into Euro, or whether you're into, you know, NBA, whatever it may be, you know, everybody knows these people like Elisa Leslie. I know Lisa's kind of in her coaching stage right now. I saw she was coaching for the Big Three when I worked at in Chicago. You know, I know she's really interested into that, and I doubt she'd probably take that role. But it's something for me where if you could get like, you know, famous faces like a Shaq or like I said, a Charles
Yeah.
Barkley, a Kenny Smith, or all these other people, you know, to kind of be having these shows at night, these TNT type specials, I think that brings so much to the game. It brings fun to the game. You know, we just saw Candace Parker doing an amazing job with the cast of TNT and really doing their thing with Shaq and Charles as well. She's been doing an amazing job. Her relationship with Shaq is crazy. You know, so it's really something for me. If we could get more of that in the WNBA, I'm sure, you know, a lot more people will keep the game on a lot longer.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You know, and it's crazy. Like I started becoming like a WNBA fan of women's basketball because I'm a big UConn Huskies fan. And like when
Mm,
I was like 12 years old, remembering that undefeated team with Sue Bird, Diana
yeah.
Taurasi, Swin Cash, man, like I don't think people realize like the amount of talent that these ladies have that is so
Yeah.
underappreciated and so undervalued. And I think just from like an X's and O's perspective, they do the right things. You know, they know how to make the left-handed layups. They know how to do the right post up. They play the right defense. They do all the right things that I think that the NBA still does, but not necessarily. They don't put as much of an emphasis on the fundamentals as I do the women's game, right?
Mm,
And so like if you were like a fan of like the X's and O's and how to properly play the game of basketball at a professional level, man, WNBA is going to be interesting. But we definitely got to keep the coverage, man, because it's like, you know, we can do all the work we want, but it's going to take some big stars, man. You know, it's gonna be interesting. So, you know, I'm out here in Seattle, man. You know, we got to show some love to the Seattle Storm, and you know, they lost Breanna Stewart, another favorite of mine. Girl is just a beast. She averaged like 22 points per game last year, man. And you know, you just think, where does this team go from here now that they lost her, having to pick up that offensive load? Does Jewel Lloyd do it? I mean, unless they do something in the draft, man. But just high level, what are your some of your thoughts on just like the Seattle Storm and how they pick up that slack?
yeah, I think you already hit it on the head. I mean, Jewel Lloyd is definitely exactly what they need to do, and I think in regard of like the new face of your franchise, you know, and I think I haven't really checked where they're at in the draft standings, but you know, it's you said what?
They're ninth in the draft.
Yeah, okay. So like respectfully, like that's a pretty that's a shitty place to be. You know what I mean? That's not exactly where you want to be after losing Bird and Stewart. You know, and ninth isn't horrible, but it's like
Right.
you just lost two of your cornerstone franchise generational players, two Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
You know, you basically lost, and I keep saying this, but again, like they're that good. It's just like BG and Tarasi. Like it's literally the Kobe and Shaq of Sue Bird and Breanna Stewart. And now it's going to be Sloot and Stewie. So I think that's going to be fun too. But I think Lloyd definitely by default. And also that she's a great hooper. But I was really curious to see what they were going to do with her at free agency standpoint because I was curious to see if they were willing to trade her to get into the top three for a
Yeah.
draft pick. But
Yeah. No.
I'm not sure,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, it's crazy because I did a little bit of research because I was curious what they could do at ninth, and so I looked up at the mock draft for the WNBA, right?
Yeah.
And so right now they have them picking in the latest mock draft of Maddie Williams, a small forward from Oklahoma. She's 6 foot. Now she was Big 12 All Tournament team in 2022. She averaged about 16, 6 and 2. But my concern is that her numbers have decreased points per game wise the last 3 seasons, going from 2018 to 16, but she's 6 foot and she's very versatile. So if she can give you like that 16, 18 points per game, again, she's not a Breanna Stewart, but a
Right.
woman that's 6 foot playing small forward. I saw some tape of her, man. I mean, she could play. She can dribble. She can shoot. She can a 3-and-D player. So if they're able to get a player like that at nine, again, it's a mock draft. I really think like
Mm.
we'll just kind of have to see on that one, man. We'll just have to see. But losing a player like Breanna Stewart, I mean, that's just a tough void to fill, no matter
Yeah.
what you do in the draft, man.
Right. And you don't, you know what I mean? Like you like respectfully, like you don't recover from that. And I think that's just something they're gonna have to address moving forward. And you know, it's gonna be an interesting season. It's kind of like, you know, I know you cover the Mercury, you know, it's like when you lose Brittany Griner or when you lose a Candace Parker, you know, you just can't in one off season find the next version of them. You know, they're
Right.
generational type talents. I think Lloyd is definitely going to be the next face of the franchise as of this moment. I don't know what their plans are moving forward, but you know, I think Seattle will be in good hands. You know, they've really put good teams together in the past. You know, they really take care of their own. Obviously, you know, having no animosity towards Stewie or to anybody else who left. You know, they really handled their business well. So, you know, I think they could definitely build something around Lloyd, and I think people would be interested to kind of go in there and be the next new faces of Seattle.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And then just kind of transitioning here, man. The New York Liberty, man. The New York Liberty. They right before free agency, Vegas had them right in the middle of the pack to win the championship.
Mm,
But they just acquired the 2021 league MVP. So, but here's like a funny stat for you. So this is actually, I was a fun fact. In the last decade, there was three MVPs that exchanged teams. That was 2012 with Tina Charles, or landed 2020 Tina Charles, and then in 2014 to 2017, and then I think in 2015. So it's just crazy how I think it was like in the I got my notes mixed up here, but essentially like in the last decade, this is like the third time that a league MVP has switched teams of some sort.
right.
That I just thought that was interesting. But anyway, I
Mm,
digress. But like now that you have Sabrina Ionescu, who had her best season statistically, you're adding Brianna Stewart, you're adding the 21 league MVP. They're going up. I think they have the second to third best odds to win the championship.
mm.
Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that they can make some noise? I mean, they made the playoffs for the first time under their head coach. Shocking. What are some of your thoughts on the Liberty?
You know, I had my first experiences with Sabrina, who we call Lady Mamba, because she takes
Mhm.
that Mamba mentality to a whole different level. And I had my first, you know, meeting with her throughout this last season, and I got to interview her, and you know, I just spoke with her again at Team USA. I feel like I keep saying that, but everybody was there. It was great seeing everybody. And you know, I really got to talk to her and get her feeling on it, and you know, the conversation really wasn't that we're bringing in champions. It was that we're not bringing them in because and we being them. You know, we're not bringing them in because we need championship pedigree. We already have a winning culture, and that's really how they felt. You know, they felt like they were knocking on the door last year when they took Game 1 in Chicago, and that was huge. You know, and you know, I remember Sabrina and I actually were trending on ESPN for a little bit because of her answer. You know, she gave me a wild answer about, you know, how she felt about it. And she's there to talk shit. She's there to talk shit and to talk her talk because she could walk it too. You know, and that's one of the biggest things about her. And I know you cover the Mercury as well as anybody else. So
Mhm.
I know how you know about Sandy and how well Sandy does at amazing things. I mean, she is an amazing players coach, and schematically she's great. I feel like every now and then she gets beat a little
Yeah.
bit. You know, Wade had her number. I ain't gonna lie, but it's in all seriousness, you know, I think it was amazing for them to do what they did, and I think, you know, outside of, you know, to give you more than just talking about Jonquel or talking about Stewie, I think the underrated conversation is Stephanie Dolson and Courtney Vandersloot,
Mm.
who won a
Yeah.
championship together in Chicago. And you know, Sloot is the point guard without a shadow of a doubt. Like if Chris Paul could actually score the ball, that is Courtney Vandersloot. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really interesting. And you have all these faces, you have all these people right now that you could actually look at and say, hey, look, we understand that they need somebody to actually get them the ball and actually do it at an efficient level. I mean, Courtney Vandersloot's the person to do it because you look at it and you're like, listen, she just played and did amazingly well. You know, career highs and everything for the Sky last year. They broke every single franchise record, so many league records. You know, you had Candace Parker, Emma Meeseman, Allie Quigley, Kalia Copper, Azure Stevens, and Sloot had no problem facilitating the ball. She gets everybody open. She does exactly what she needs to do. And I think that's one of the best things for her is really just having a team that she can win a championship on. And I think this team, I mean, the sky is the limit, actually. Like, I feel
Mm.
like it's I hate saying it so early on, but it's literally Vegas versus New York right now. And I think that's the consensus.
I mean, dude, when you add a woman like Jones, who's 6'7", averaging 13.8 and 1.4 blocks per game, I mean, that's filling up the stat sheet right there, man. I mean,
Right.
that's just it's going to be very exciting because I mean, the New York Liberty, I've always appreciated them, but I've always appreciated Ionescu, man, because her type of game, like you said, that Mamba mentality. When she came here and played the Mercury, like, you know, I had a chance to meet her, and just her overall confidence just in the game. You know, she
Yeah.
has a lot of underrated and underappreciated like type speed. She doesn't necessarily, when you look at her just like from film, she doesn't seem like the fastest, but she's actually very, very, very quick and very agile and can move from one side of the floor very, very quickly, and just overall
Mhm.
court vision, man. So I think it's an exciting time in the WNBA. I'm excited about it. But I think they need to add some teams, man. What are two cities you like to see that they before we finish up here? What are some cities would you like to see have a WNBA team?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different places that I think you can kind of go after and say, you think that they're gonna have the greatest chance to actually remain consistent in this league. A big thing is selling tickets, and a big thing is actually filling seats, and that's really what it comes down to. I think Miami is one of those teams that I would really love to see get a basketball team. I think the color waves, the schemes that they could do with that, the names and everything else, the camaraderie with the Miami Heat, I think they'd be fully in support of that. It'd be really interesting to see if they could do that. And another team for me, which I don't know if they'd be able to sell the most tickets. I don't know how that would really go, but Detroit basketball is a really great place. I talked to a lot of guys who are Detroit Piston fans, and they love their basketball over there. So I feel like that would be a great place. Philly is a big one for me as well. I think Philly would be amazing. I'm actually kind of surprised they haven't really kind of transitioned to that beforehand because, Philly basketball, on all platforms is an amazing place. So I think those kind of places, big markets, I don't want to see Wyoming or Utah, and it's no disrespect, but it's like, it's like we need more big market teams before we kind of start going everywhere else. So I think that's really what I'm looking at.
Yeah, no doubt. And Philly, man, Philly is, outside of, Philly, that whole arena, that whole complex where they have, Lincoln Financial Field, they got Wells Fargo Arena, they got the Philly Stadium, all within like that complex. And it's just perfectly, I'm a Baltimore guy, so I've gone to Philly plenty of times to a lot of different sporting events there. Man, the Wells Fargo Arena would be sold out. They would love to have a game, man. But no, man, thanks for coming on the show, brother. Really appreciate it. We'll definitely have to do this again. Do you want to give out your shout out to some of the things you're doing, your Twitter handle, and all that stuff?
Yeah, man. I mean, you can find me right here, at the Shy.Kid. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. We do a show for the WNBA and the Chicago Sky on the ASAP network called Skytown. We do everything Chicago Sky. We really love doing that. I'm going to be having a new show, WNBA, with the queen of the league and Megan Price. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to get that going with her. And that's really it, man. I appreciate you having me on, bro.
No doubt, man. No doubt. We'll definitely have to bring you on, talk a little bit more WNBA because I really wanna help, whatever I can to help spread the word about WNBA. The free agency was one of the things I was really paying attention closely to. And there's a lot of really good teams, man. There's a lot of good balanced teams. And I think that even though the Aces are the favorite, I don't think it's just going to be a foregone conclusion that they're just going to run away with the league because I'm really excited to see what happens with New York. So again, man, much love, appreciate you. When I'm out in Chicago, I'll definitely give you a shout. We'll get some brick oven pizza.
For sure, man.
All right. Well, that's all, folks. That's for a special episode for the free agency special for the Death Taxes Sports Podcast. We are partnering with ASAP Sports Network. Got to give them a shout out. And do not forget, our 2-year anniversary special is Tuesday, February 21st. Can't wait to get that going. All right, guys. Peace.